Welcome back to No Sleep Till, show dedicated to discussion about the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is Evan Reier. I'm Travis Reier. And Evan, we know someone in Duval County that's exceptionally happy this week besides Jaguar fans. How about Josh Allen getting that big bag? I guess not unexpected. This figured to get done sooner rather than later, but I still got the sense that, at least among the fan base, there was this sort of collective sigh of relief that it actually happened.
No, I think it was. I wouldn't say it's a surprise that it happened before the start of the season. It is surprising that they got this done, relatively quickly before the draft. Some people would still probably say they should have already had this done. They may be right, but the fact of the matter is that the best player on the team last year, the most important player on the team last year for the 2023 season, has been extended. A guy that you know personality was never the issue with Josh Allen. Like we've always thought, like this is the kind of person you want on your team. But last year was really that breakthrough season that we all thought he was capable of, and now he's going to be around. I mean, 5 years, $150 million contract, 88 guaranteed. No, and it's hard to say he doesn't deserve it.
No, and he checks all the boxes too. This is the kind of guy you want to extend, and it hasn't been very frequent over the last 10 or 15 years for a Jaguars former first round pick to actually get a second deal or extended
Yeah.
like this. But not only is he coming off a huge year, the best statistically by a pretty good bit in terms of his NFL career, but a public figure that you want as sort of a face. It's really a great situation for the Jags from that perspective when you have Trevor as your franchise quarterback. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you got just, by all accounts, a solid person in Josh Allen. Now, look, the numbers, the production, they have to meet up. That's what this all comes down
Yeah.
to. Josh, and what was really a contract year, lived up to that. And here he is rewarded. And I thought you touched on it. If you had a power rankings for Jaguar players after last season, in your opinion, Josh Allen clearly at the top of that list.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just talking about, hey, how did you perform in 2023? I mean, it was Josh Allen and kind of everybody else. Part of that is not necessarily, with guys like Christian Kirk when you're injured and stuff. I get that. Evan Ingram deserves to be in that conversation for last year. Alokun maybe, but 17 and a half sacks in a season. I mean, franchise record. Uh, Fairly consistent with those sacks too. Not kind of the oh, I had a 4 sack game and then I had a drought. He's a problem every snap. I mean, he really is. And I think something I mentioned last week, or if it wasn't last week, it was the week before. Was man, when you can re-sign guys like this, the morale in the locker room, in the roster, it goes up. And that is important, especially, as you carry on throughout the offseason, before you guys, before the entire team gets back together. This is a thing that says to the players, to the younger players, especially, these kind of burgeoning, guys on the team. Hey, we do pay guys. We do want to keep the core together. We do want to reward players for playing well, and I think that's a signal that the Jags haven't sent enough in the past. So to do it now, it's very, very encouraging.
Yeah, there's some revisionist history going on here in the last couple of days, too. You sort of touched on that, and understandably so, because the what if scenarios with all this, right? If you tag Ridley, you get this deal done, you could have had your cake, so to speak, and ate it too. But there's also that side of it. Maybe you don't get Eric Armstead
Yeah.
in that scenario. So, a couple different ways to look at this. In some ways, maybe Trent Baalke's playing chess and a lot of us or a lot of folks were playing checkers, but it's just one of those things that you kind of have to wait and see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's what's funny is that like there are like, there are like people that, or the Jaguars Twitter account even has kind of been like a little petty or a little like jokey about like, oh, resign Josh Allen. I can't believe they won't do it and they did it or whatever. The thing is like I want to give Trent Baalke credit for doing this, but this feels like a no-brainer. This feels like one that you don't need to be playing chess to do, or whether you're playing chess or checkers, this is the right move. So, at the end of the day, I'm happy. I'm not, trying to detract from anything or water it down. I'm very stoked. And one thing I will give Bulky credit for is I do like how the contract is set up. Basically, this year Josh Allen is only going to be a, $11 million cap hit. The Jags have somewhat set themselves up to where, okay, let's say they need to make some midseason moves. They want to make a push. There's a guy that becomes available like Brandon Ayuk or something like that. They still have the space to do that. They got $32 million, even with this new extension for this season. I mean, after that, of course, things get pretty expensive. But the other thing to like about the contract is that these next 2 years, the 2025 and 2026 seasons, are fully guaranteed, just like this year. After 3 years, let's say this deal doesn't work out. Let's say Allen gets injured or he kind of regresses. They can move on from Josh Allen after the 2026 season with $0 dead cap. Now, I'm not trying to think about what could happen negatively, but this seems like a very, very smart deal in terms of, hey, 27-year-old season through 29-year-old season, fully locked in, deserves to be paid that much. And then, we can see after that, they still have him for 2 years if they want him, but they also have the flexibility to bail if that's what it comes to.
Yeah, and the details matter, as is typically the case with these deals in the National Football League and how they impact cap space and those type of things. I think we saw that just last week. We were on almost immediately after the news of Stephon Diggs going from Buffalo to Houston broke, and the initial reaction was, wow, Texans just keep loading up. Then in the following days, as you get more of the information as it relates to what the
The
Texans were
contract,
looking
yeah,
at
yeah.
moving forward, you started to think, that may have been a bit of a reach. We'll see.
No, it's that definitely does affect things. They basically have traded a second rounder for a mercenary for a single season. Um, you know, Typically you do that maybe if you feel like your window's about to close, like if you're like, oh, we only have a year or two or whatever. That's kind of to relate it to the Josh Allen contract. They've set it up to where it's like, okay, well, if this season's a dud, Josh Allen's locked up long term, but we still have maneuverability. We can still make something happen this season. Yeah, with the Texans and Diggs, that's kind of going to be, I don't see Stephon Diggs sticking around. I think he was down to make that move, probably only if he was going to play just the 2024 season and then get on his way. Whether who knows? He might stick around, but I could see him being on the move again, of course, next season once he's a free agent. Um,
Yeah,
but
for
yeah,
sure. It is interesting with the details. And so when you look at the Jags now and you see the 150 million, that number doesn't really resonate with me. Maybe I'm desensitized at this point. I
yeah,
always go to the guaranteed money from the player perspective. And Josh Allen got it. I
yeah.
mean, you're right. I think it was a sensible deal for the Jaguars based on, let's say, the Bosa's and some of the other deals we've seen for that position here in recent history. But you look at this now core front for the Jags on that defensive line, Evan. You think about Trayvon Walker still trying to get closer and closer to what the Jags hope at least is his ceiling. We've seen Josh Allen. I don't know if he has a season with more than 18 sacks in him. Maybe he does. And then Eric Armstead coming in. So I think it really comes down to at this point, you're comfortable with Allen. Armstead, you wonder a little bit about how many more years he's got left. And then with Walker, it's for what you put into him as a number one overall pick. Still, what exactly is his ceiling? Together, though, this looks like a great group.
Yeah, this is when we talked about championship caliber groups, this is definitely one of them. Um, I also the last thing I'll toot about the Josh Allen contract is he was asked about, hey, You did that in a contract year. You had your best season in a contract year. How do you, kind of carry that over to the start of the new contract? I liked his answer, which was just saying, the fact that it was contract year didn't have anything to do with it. I've always tried my hardest and all that stuff. I thought it was a solid answer, but just in case this contract does have some incentives. If he gets all pro first team, he gets $1 million. If he gets 17 and a half sacks like he did last year, that is another $1.5 million. So, I mean, there's $2.5 million out there for Josh Allen to still go earn each season. I like that. I like having, you never know. I like having a little bit of incentive for the big man. So no, as part of the defensive line group, this is kind of setting up, a precedent of what can happen with Trayvon Walker, and also, gives him his own motivation, which Trayvon Walker did say. I forget who asked him, but he was like, I went, I was supposed to have an off day and I went and worked out after I saw Josh got the deal. I was like, yeah, man, I get it. I get it. I'd be doing the same.
So this sort of shifts the focus, I would think, to Trevor,
Yeah.
and what you expect to be his impending deal. It's kind of interesting with quarterbacks of that sort of 3 to 4 years in the league range, too, right? Because Tua Tagovailoa is another guy that there seems to be a question mark about. Okay, yeah, he's going to get a second deal, you think, but what are those numbers going to look like?
Right.
So that's where it gets interesting with Trevor.
No, that's the thing is, we've talked about this, basically since November. There's figuring out the motivation for both sides there, for Trevor's side and for the Jaguars side on, the Jaguars probably would love to get Trevor for like a relatively cheap deal, right? Because Trevor's coming off a bad season, or we'll say a mediocre season. Definitely not his best. Could we get him to sign for something like, 25 million a season or something like that? Something extremely cheap for a guy that has the potential, the ceiling that he does. Spot Trek estimates Trevor Lawrence's annual salary value at $50 million a season.
That's
If I'm
top 10 QB, top five, I
top
guess.
five, top five in QB. That would put him in, basically, yeah, like Jalen Hurts contract territory. That's more than Kyler Murray. That's just below Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson. Um, I wouldn't want, we're talking about power rankings for last season. Based on last season, I wouldn't want to pay Trevor Lawrence that money. However, I also don't think Trevor has incentive to accept a low deal right now. He probably also wants to bet on himself.
Think
So
about the teams that don't have a quarterback
yeah,
situation even close to the Jags.
yeah, yeah.
That's why you bet on yourself, probably, if you're Trevor, too, if it comes
Yeah,
down to it.
I mean, he could go get the same contract that, if the Jags are trying to lowball, or I have no idea what they're trying to do, where the state of the extension is at. But if they are trying to get him on, a cut rate kind of situation, Trevor Lawrence has no incentive to accept that. He should just go play this upcoming season and ball out, and then say, okay, now you guys actually have to make me, a top two, top three highest paid quarterback in the NFL. I would love for that to happen. That's the scenario I want to play out. I would be cool with the cut rate deal, but I don't think that the allocation of money that the Jags still have, this 30 million for this season, I don't think they are saving it for Trevor. I don't know what they're saving it for. I really hope they're saving it for something like a move for Brandon Ayuk and extending him, or something like that. But I just have a feeling that we're not going to see the extension this season for Trevor. They still technically have him next year on that 5th year option. I just don't,
They got to make
there's,
a call on that pretty soon, too. So
yeah, they do have to pull the trigger on that, which
that's a no
I
brainer if it
yeah, it's
comes down
25
to it.
million. It's 25
Yeah.
million. Yeah, like, I mean, it doesn't matter. Even if he plays another mediocre season this year, you still should absolutely just take that option and roll with it. But yeah, no, I think with the Trevor setup, I don't know if the Allen deal has a whole lot of immediate repercussions when it comes to that. It might factor into cap space, issues down the road, but the Jaguars are still doing pretty good in that sense. When you look down the years, they don't have a lot of dead money. They haven't made a lot of mistakes in terms of, cutting players hyper early or whatever. and they don't have a ton of like guaranteed money, even like when you look like 2 years down the road. So I think there's still a lot of room for optimism with Trevor Lawrence and his extension. I just personally don't think it's going to happen this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, teams are going to try to ride that rookie contract for as long as they can, and
I mean, yeah, Brock
certainly
Purdy's not getting paid this offseason.
no.
Like,
And but, also from Trevor's perspective, I think even Mac Jones, after he basically flops or lays over in Jacksonville for a year, there will still be a nice market for him in a year's time as a starter
yeah.
in the National Football League. It's almost like head coaches for years in the NFL. Get fired, go back to a coordinator level, years time, you're right back in a head coaching spot. I think that's kind of the situation that we have with quarterbacks right now. Just don't have enough good ones, high quality quarterbacks. I think there's more than there was maybe 5 years ago, but it's always been sort of this ongoing situation in the NFL. So when you talk about the state of this roster right now, and we'll look ahead to the draft process and thinking about, it seems like almost weekly the narrative shifts a little bit on with that 17th pick, what the Jaguars might do, which position they might look at. It seems like Terrion Arnold of Alabama, though, is a mainstay in a lot of these first round mocks. Is that what you're picking up, Evan? And is that almost a surefire indicator that it won't be Terrion Arnold at 17?
I swear, every time I turn on ESPN or anything like that, or I'm just casually looking at mock drafts, it's Terry and Arnold, which I'm stoked. We talked, I think, in the first episode of would you rather have Tyrion Arnold or Kool-Aid McKinstry? And I said Tyrion Arnold. But yeah, it's getting to the point where it's like it's inescapable, which means there's no way that one like, and it's not that like the Jags don't want Arnold. It's just that if it'll be like Arnold gets drafted like 2 or 3 picks higher or something, from a team that maybe like the Chargers who are kind of projected to take a corner. Maybe they go for Arnold over someone like Quinyon Mitchell or something like that. But no, I think it is an indicator that I guess the buzz is, yeah, it's got to be a corner. It's got to be a corner. You're not really seeing the Jags linked up with pretty much any other position. And at that point, I mean, really, Arnold versus, I guess there's Cooper DeJean, there's Kool-Aid, of course, Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. These are all options, but
Dennis Rakestraw,
Rakestraw.
Missouri.
These are all options, but I just genuinely think Arnold is the second or third best corner in this draft, and I would be very, very stoked about the Jaguars taking him.
Taking quarterback and let's say a specialist, kicker or
Yeah,
punter, out of the equation. Which position would surprise you the most if the Jags went there, other than corner or say wide receiver, in that number 17 spot?
I think the worst possible pick would be interior offensive line. Like if they
Ooh.
went and got like Jackson Powers Johnson, the dude out of Oregon. Um, Jackson Powers Johnson is a fantastic prospect, but drafting interior O line that high up in the draft, right? Like literally for the past decade, has pretty much proved to be, even when you nail it, not worth the value. So that would be the one that they do need that. Like they still definitely need help on the interior OL, I think. That would be the one that I would not be a big fan of if they went that route. I also wouldn't be a big fan of the classic Trent Baalke move.
Inside
The
linebacker.
Yeah, the dude loves his linebackers, right? You literally every time the Jaguars are up to pick in this draft, I'm going to be a little worried that they're going to take a linebacker they don't need. They don't need any linebackers; they're totally fine. But you never know with this dude. So yeah, linebacker would be the like literally. Even though I don't think there's any way in hell that it happens, there's the small fear in the back of my head of linebacker. But really, the one position I would want them to avoid in the first round is interior OL.
When you think about potential picks beyond 17 and how that could line up, we've seen defensive line, we've seen more so a big body, maybe at the tackle position in the second round or beyond. We've seen wide receiver second, third round, kind of mocked, projected towards Jacksonville, we both heard that Jermaine Burton, the Alabama wide receiver, recently paid a top 30 visit to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Maybe the approach beyond 17. And you think about this draft with OL, especially tackles, wide receiver depth, corner depth. There are a couple different ways you could go at this thing.
Oh, absolutely. I would still, I was talking all that mess about, getting a guard or a center, but I would love for them to, take a tackle, on day two. I think there's a lot of solid talent there, and I think that would be a really really shrewd move. I think if you're not going to move up for a receiver, I would probably wait to round 3 or 4. Somebody that I think is going to be there in round 3 is Troy Franklin, the Oregon receiver. This is for those who didn't watch Bo Nix throw to this dude. Troy Franklin averaged like 17 yards a catch, 14 touchdowns, like 1,400 yards, something like that. Uh, Dude is a perfect downfield option that I think, like at least in terms of how he can fit into this offense. Because you've got Christian Kirk, you've got what I think Troy Franklin could be is what we kind of wanted Zay Jones to be, which was okay. This guy can kind of run these outside routes. He can go down. He can high point. He can make a contested catch, pick up big yardage on those downfield shots. Because we really haven't had that guy for Trevor basically the entire time he's been here. Calvin Ridley really isn't that guy.
No.
I think
Calvin really wasn't that guy at Alabama. I mean,
yeah,
you go back to his college career. I want to say either his last season at Alabama or his next. He averaged like 11.6 per reception.
he's a
He wasn't a
premier.
yeah
Ridley's a premier route runner. He's
intermediate
amazing at that.
guy. Yeah,
Intermediate, yeah. He's CD Lamb is like basically the best version of Calvin Ridley right now. That's like literally how I would kind of describe it. But no, Troy Franklin is a guy that I've been learning a little bit more through my job and other stuff, and that's a guy I would love in round 3. I would love Jermaine Burton too. I think Jermaine Burton could definitely fill that same role. He has a somewhat similar skill set, and I also think that Jermaine Burton's ceiling might be a little bit higher than somebody like Franklin, but that's mostly just speculation or conjecture.
we talk mock drafts, especially where the first round is concerned. We both watch a ton of college football. Is there a guy that you see consistently in these first round mocks that it surprises you to see them in the first round? Not to try to tear guys down, but
Yeah,
I'll start. I'll go with Bo Nix. It
yeah,
just blows me away to see Bo Nix, not just in the first round, but like in the top half
yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah,
first
yeah.
round. To me, he's just not that guy. Now, really good college quarterback, played at Auburn, played at Oregon, put up big numbers.
Tons of
But when I
experience.
think about the National Football League, I just don't see that guy, being a first round pick.
I think the my version of that is JJ McCarthy. I think a lot of people feel that
Yeah,
way. But the thing is that,
quarterback.
he's a national champ. He's you got to take a quarterback if you're, a team that needs one. And I personally would go with Drake May, but I see McCarthy being mocked above Drake May consistently right now. So that's partially because I think people just think that McCarthy and New England are like such a energy match. He just like fits in that kind of organization. But so McCarthy comes to mind. I would say, other than that, there's not like a ton that I'm whatever. But I will say the more I've learned about and watched because obviously when they played LSU, when Alabama played LSU, I watched Brian Thomas Jr. in that game. And he is obviously a very talented player. I have a big question mark with him, and how much of that is Jaden Daniels. Like how he's a very very he's fast, he's athletically impressive, but that is a guy that really before last year he was not really a factor at LSU. And even last year, as explosive as he was, I wouldn't consider him consistent the more research I've done. So,
I think some people with that situation at LSU, because of Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., I think parallels get drawn between Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson,
Jefferson,
because
yeah.
Justin Jefferson, by a lot of folks, was undervalued perhaps coming
Yeah.
out of LSU because of Jamar Chase. And it's like they don't want to underrate Brian Thomas Jr. because of what happened with that 2019 team with Burrow and those guys at the wide receiver position. I'm with you though. I'm not sure Thomas is a legit number one, but I do think his floor or his ceiling, however you match this up, he's a legit high level two. I could
Yeah.
see in the National Football League, but for where some people might be considering to take him, I'm not sure he's a number one at that level.
Yeah. Him and then I think the hype has cooled down, but you were seeing Xavier Worthy in the first round of a lot of mocks there for a second. Now, really in the past week or two, as we get closer, it seems like he's kind of dropped out.
He's
Um,
160 pounds or so.
yeah, man. It's just it
He
feels
can
like that dude.
fly and he can run routes too, but yeah,
It seems like, you're a year or two of athletic development away from him being somebody that can really
a
kind
little
of
bit of a red
last.
shirt pick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Still, but no, I mean, that's the thing though, is that with the NFL draft, every year you're gonna have guys that you're like not big on, and it turns out, wow, they've made the jump, and then you're gonna have guys that you go like for me, and with Jaden Daniels, I'm like, I think Jaden Daniels is. Got all the tools. I think he's going to be fantastic. Who knows? Who knows, man? He might go out there and lay an egg and whatever.
I
It's
was going to
the
ask you about those quarterbacks when you
yeah.
start talking about Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. and Drake May and Jaden Daniels. Once you get beyond Caleb Williams, who is your guy that you feel strongest about that in 5 years from now we'll be talking about as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL?
I think I have to go 1A, 1B with Jane Daniels and Drake May. I think one, just watching Jane Daniels last year was just, I mean, it's absolutely insane, the season he had, and I don't see how you walk away from his tape both at LSU and then when he was with a less resourceful university like Arizona State. I don't see how you walk away thinking this guy can't do it all. I mean, he definitely can. He's got the entire tool set, extremely athletic. He might even, end up being able to carry over some of that rushing ability as well. I think he's a guy who wants to pass, of course, but I mean, he can do it all. Him, and then, if I'm thinking a more traditional pick or more traditional quarterback, Drake May doesn't quite have the same resume, but I really do think that his measurables, his arm, all those different stuff. I really think that he may not be Hall of Fame prospect or anything like that. I would be shocked if Drake May is not going to get a second contract with whatever team he gets drafted by.
I really like Jaden Daniels, man. I feel like
Yeah,
he's going to be the real deal. I know there's concerns about will he protect himself enough, pretty slight of build. Here's the thing, I think he will. And I also think that in the NFL, they do a better job of protecting quarterbacks than they do in the college game. You would
very
think it
true.
would be the other way around. It isn't. In college, they let quarterbacks get teed up. In the NFL, they do a pretty good job of taking care of their uh, primary investments. I'll go back to Xavier Worthy. If Xavier Worthy's there second, third round, I got no problem with the Jags taking that cat because he
Yeah,
does run sub 4.4. I see some Deshaun Jackson in him. I
yeah.
think that's a pretty good comp. Maybe it's already been made. I don't know. But speed and route running, I know he's slight, but we'll see how that goes as well. Anything else on the draft sort of catch your eye here, your ear here?
Uh, no, not especially. I think we're good.
All right, Evan, if you got some closing statements you want to make on the program today, feel free to do that. I was also going to ask you as we sit here right now, and I guess it was the same as it was a week ago. I mean, Josh Allen was still a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars, but do you feel better about this Jaguar team? Not even say in comparison to a week ago, but like a year ago. And understanding there was so much brimming confidence coming off that finish to the 2022 season, disappointment in 2023. Where you at in terms of your confidence level right now with the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I think if last week was like a 6, we'll say we're at a 7.
Okay.
Not a huge bump, but a significant one. It's yeah, like you said, this is still the same team it was a week ago, but I still like the fact. I still like knowing that Josh Allen is sticking around long term. He is going into the season not with this kind of attitude of, well, damn, they won't pay me or blah blah, and nobody else is either. Nobody else is looking at that and thinking any negative thoughts. Um, I think, yeah, we'll give it a tick up to a 7 just on pure morale. Just thinking that okay, maybe this team is feeling good. Josh Allen said that pretty much everybody texted him, after he got paid. So that's it's good to see some connectivity. We it's kind of been a quiet past month or so since the Jags really did much. So to kind of have just something to drop in right before the draft. We're only 2.5 weeks away from that. I wouldn't. I think the offseason is going well. I still have my concerns, but yeah, we'll leave it at a 7.
Mine's up from a week ago simply because I've learned more about the Stephon Diggs deal with the
Yeah,
Texans. That helped me as much as anything feel
yeah.
better about the situation. Well, Evan, as always, a lot of fun, my man. Look forward to doing it again soon.
Oh yeah, no. We'll be back with I guess regular Wednesday programming
Really
next
getting
week.
draft heavy. It's almost here, man.
I know. I'm really stoked. It's going to be. I always, especially day 3. That's one of my favorite days. It's just like how the Masters this weekend. I just sit down. I
Evan
turn
with
on
the
the
Masters
TV.
party coming up Sunday.
Yeah, I'm doing a little get together for the homies. We'll see. I don't have a lot of friends that love golf, but we'll see if I
Doesn't
can
matter.
convince some people.
Just
No,
do
it doesn't
some
matter at all.
lime green jello shooters. It'll be fine. You
Hey,
know.
we're getting classy. We're doing Bloody Marys and mimosas and
Wow.
transfusions. I'm
Doing
making
the real
homemade
stuff.
pimento cheese. Uh,
Nice.
I'm not telling any of my friends that I'm taking the recipe from mom.
Well,
She's gonna, yeah. It's a family thing.
mom's
It's
undefeated on
yeah.
stuff like that, man.
No, I
You're
she
smart.
well, I
You're
was gonna make my
resourceful.
own recipe, and then she shared a photo on her All the
Oof.
Bits Jax Instagram account. Little plug there, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just do that. I'm gonna take the guesswork out of this. So,
Yeah, we're gonna have
yeah.
the southeast covered with the Masters party. You'll have yours. We'll have one probably, and
It's gonna be. Looks like an interesting weekend. Today's extremely windy from what I've seen on the
yeah,
broadcast. So
weather pushing
uh,
through the southeast.
we'll
Yeah,
see.
man.
We'll see if it cools down and or if it heats up in terms of those scores. But I always enjoy when Augusta gives them a little bit of a challenge. So
Yeah,
yeah. All right.
we'll do it. So for Evan Reier, I'm Travis Reier. Thanks for joining us right here on No Sleep Teal. Until next time, so long, everyone.